Revelation of the Daleks. My thoughts. Hello and welcome to another video. This time around I thought I'd do a little video about Revelation of the Daleks. For the simple reason that this was the last Doctor Who that I've watched. I actually watched this on New Year's Day. I watched this with my New Year's Day dinner, which was very nice. And I thoroughly enjoyed the dinner and I thoroughly enjoyed Revelation of the Daleks. So I just thought I'd do a little video talking about it. Now, I actually saw episode 1 of Revelation of the Daleks on broadcast as a kid before I was a fan. I mean, I didn't become a fan till Christmas 1986, but I had seen Doctor Who before. I mean, I saw large chunks of the Davison era. I saw large chunks of season 22. I know for a fact that I just saw episode 1 of Revelation of the Daleks. I know this because the following week we went out. And we went out for like the early evening, for like the afternoon and early evening. And it was basically a choice between taping Doctor Who or taping Robin of Sherwood. And I taped Robin of Sherwood. Sacrilege. But yeah, at that point, I would have said I was a much bigger fan of Revelation of the Daleks than I was of Doctor Who. Doctor Who was just something I watched at that point. And I seem to vaguely recall that I wasn't that impressed by part 1 of Revelation of the Daleks and finding it a bit dull. And so I chose Robin of Sherwood. Though my brother told me when we got home that part 2 had been much more exciting. He probably doesn't remember that, but I do. So the first time I saw Revelation of the Daleks in full properly would have been, I don't know, 89, 90. It was one of those that I got a new fan friend who was very well connected and had lots of kind of off-air pirate copies, including ones from Satellite and Australia and all the rest of it. I think I got him to take me all of season 22 in one go, which was very cheeky, but there you go. So that was when I first saw Revelation of the Daleks, and I had a much more positive impression of it than I had 4 or 5 years earlier just watching part 1. I mean, I would have been a lot, in my mid-teens by that point. And I loved Revelation of the Daleks then, and I've loved it ever since. I mean, I bought it on VHS whenever that came out. I seem to think that was one of the later releases, wasn't it? Because it had like the post-McGann TV movie logo on it. I think it was probably late 90s, if not early 2000s. But Revelation is one of those stories that, yeah, I've been watching, every few years for what? 37, 36, 35 years now, because it never really went away, even though the VHS release was one of the later ones. I had that pirate copy that a friend made me all that time, and it was perfectly watchable until the official one came out. And then, of course, I bought the DVD, and then, of course, I bought the Season 22 Blu-ray box set. Now, I've seen some of Season 22 on Blu-ray. I think Revelation was one of the last that I haven't seen via the Blu-ray set until I watched it on New Year's Day. I mean, I watched Attack a couple of years ago, and Davros, Two Doctors, Mark the Rani, all of which I've enjoyed. I love season 22. I think season 22 is a wonderful season, bar Time Lash, which is bloody awful. I know a lot of fans have been trying to rehabilitate Time Lash. I still don't like it. I'm sorry, it's rubbish. But Revelation of the Daleks is a great story. Now, long-term viewers will know that I'm not a big fan of Resurrection. I think Resurrection's wildly overrated and a bit on the crap side, to be honest. It always kind of baffles me. I know it's a topic for another video, perhaps. It always kind of baffles me that Resurrection and Attack are like blood brothers, only Attack is much better written and yet gets slagged off infinitely more than Resurrection, even though Resurrection's infinitely crapper. Yeah, that never made any sense to me, but there you go. But Revelation is it's the last Eric Soward story, isn't it? It's the last one he wrote. And, I mean, it's really good. You can clearly see the Robert Holmes influence. He's said that, he was very much influenced by Robert Holmes. He really looked up to Robert Holmes as a writer, and you can see him kind of emulating a lot of the home style here with the not just the dark humor but the double acts. I mean, practically every set of characters, it's a double act between the characters, isn't it? Which is very much a Holmesian trait. And I have to say, yeah, I mean, Attack was Eric Soward as well. Obviously it was influenced by Ian Levine, but that's clearly Eric Soward. And to me, you can see the improvement in the writing between Resurrection and his season 22 stuff. It's just much better written. The dialogue's much better. There's humor. There's character. That applies to Attack, and it applies to Revelation. You've got some wonderful actors like William Gaunt, Eleanor Bron, Terry Malloy is a fantastic Davros. I really enjoyed watching Revelation again. It's been a few years. I mean, like I said, the Blu-ray's been out for a couple of years, and I've seen most of them. But Revelation's kind of like the last one that I haven't watched, and it's been a few years. It must be 5, maybe even longer. But I really enjoyed the story all over again. And you get to the end, and again you feel kind of sad when the Blackpool gets cut off. You're like, why couldn't we have seen that? Because I think the show was going in a really interesting direction. I think Colin was great in season 22. I don't think he was as good in 23. They kind of screwed him over and then bundled him out the door, which was really, very odd. I think he's great in Revelation. I think he's great throughout season 22. And yeah, you just feel really, really sad that it's like, why couldn't we have had another season like this? I'd love to that. I mean, I know Black Glove is supposedly doing that Nightmare Fair animation. Maybe that we can have that. You just feel really, really sad that we can't really go on to the next season properly, because we basically get almost like a soft reboot with season 23, and it's not very good either. Anyway, these are just some of my thoughts on Revelation of the Daleks. Long being one of my favourites, maybe not the first time I saw it, but from the second time onwards as a fan. It's a very adult story, which is probably why I didn't appreciate part 1 when I saw it when I was like, 9 or 10. But yeah, Revelation of the Daleks, great story. Second best Dalek story of the 80s. Still give it to Remembrance, but it's certainly way better than Resurrection, in my opinion. An A+ from me.